You ready for theme number 2? Let's do theme number 2, shall we? Oh, I'm looking forward to this. I had some fun this weekend, got out my sewing machine and started to play around with some things. We wanted to do some fun little, just small little Christmas ideas, going Christmas holidays, going into the season. And I was inspired by this charm pack right here. We actually shared this on Plaid Friday, so some of you got that. Anyway, lots of really cool prints in there. It has kind of a vintagey feel to it. So I was playing around with that charm pack, which is it's not necessarily my personal taste at first. I will say at first, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, it's okay. But, I kind of tend to go a little brighter or whatever. And I started playing with this and went, oh my gosh, I love this fabric so much. What could I do with it? So I thought, you know what? I've been wanting to do a little tutorial on stockings, like little mini stockings. I love little mini stockings because they're just fun to be able to make and to put gifts in them, right? So I was playing with this charm pack and I said, what if I could put a little mini stocking out of a charm pack? Wouldn't that be fun? So I have to tell you kind of the process of how my mind goes. So I actually kept my little samples here to show you kind of when you're trying to do trial and error, what's happening. So I was grabbing scraps. So I first decided I'm going to do a little stocking out of one charm. How is that going to turn out? And I was playing with it. I got it done. And I was like, that is way too tiny. That's just too small. You couldn't even fit a gift card in that, right? And I had the opening up here because I thought, well, if I keep the opening here, then I can turn this cuff down and look, but it looks like a baby booty. I mean, come on, right? Totally impractical. Unless, of course, you wanted to keep it like this, and then you can maybe hang it on like a banner. That would be cute, and do a little advent calendar or something. But to me, it was just too small. So I said, okay, scrap that. What if we were to do to put a 4 patch together? So 4 5-inch squares, which would end up being 9.5 inches, because you got to take into take into account your seam allowances. Now, again, you probably recognize this fabric. I was just playing around with some scraps that I had. So I started playing with this, and this was this was really pointy and gross. And it dawned on me as I was sewing around it, I thought, you know what? This would actually be better. One of the tips I'm going to share with you today is that whenever you're going around curves, you're going to get a much smoother curve if you will shorten your stitch length. Okay, when you think about it, these tiny stitches, you can just go around a curve so much smoother than having bigger stitches and having it jump. And that's kind of what happened here. So I was playing around with that. And then I was playing around with my opening, and I didn't like where the opening was, but I'm like, no, that's okay, because this is going to turn down underneath it. And that was looking not so good. I was like, this is a mess. This is a mess. I don't like it. Nope, scrap that. So then I went to my next one. You see how these things work? Always keep trying. And you know what I always talk about? I always talk about being curious. So when you get frustrated with something, rather than getting frustrated and angry and mad, you become curious. So you start playing around with other ways to do it. So then I came up with this, and it was okay. It worked pretty well. I decided that, yes, I did the opening up there, and then I thought, why am I doing the opening up there? I should just do the opening in the lining. I hope I'm not boring you to tears right now, but I wanted to kind of tell you sometimes this process that you go through when you come up with these little projects. So I decided the next time around, I'm going to go in through the lining. I'm not going to have anything open on the outside. And I didn't like, this was a little too long in length. So then what I did was I pinned this back a little bit just with a pin, and I went, okay, wait a minute. If I pin this back, then the toe is actually a little bit better, you know, in a better placement that I want to have. And I want to curve this up a little bit more, and I want to curve over here. So it's a process, you know. And as you play with it, you write it down on paper, but you really have to, I don't know about you, but you really have to try it out. You can't just count on a picture on paper that it's going to work. One thing I also noticed was this. I didn't like the way when I had the stocking go straight up, this part, when I pulled this down, it was a little too tight on the stocking itself. And I wanted a little bit more of the flare. Okay. So what I did was I redrew this, and now I had a bit of a flare at the top. So let me show you my pattern. This is what I ended up finally coming up with. So you can see that the toe is much, you know, smaller than it was, kind of out more before. I have a little bit more curve here. I put a little more curve in the heel, and you can see that the top extends out a little bit more. So here we go. You ready to see the finished item? I hope you like it. Here we go. So here is the stocking, and this is with the charm pack. Pretty cool, right? Okay, and here's another one. And this is one of those things where you just can't, yeah, it looks like we have a spammer on here. So hold on just a second. Let me grab Allison. Allison, we have a spammer on the 3 at 3. Can you get rid of them? Okay, Allison's on it. Weird. Okay, so here we go. So here's the stockings, and they're patchwork. And so they each take 8 charms. Okay, so you have 4 charms in the front, 4 charms in the back, and look at those vintagey prints. They're so cute. I just love that. I love, here we go. I love the music print right here, and then like the words of the music right there. So I think it's very charming. The fun thing about this too is that it is a good enough size that you could put like a gift card in there and some candies and maybe some sprigs of greenery coming out. It could be a lot of fun. You can do all sorts of things with this size. So if you want to make these and you want to make them out of a charm pack, you'll actually be able to make 5 stockings out of 1 charm pack. Okay. All right. So you want to see how it's done? Here's another thing I learned in the process while I was doing these. One of the things I like to do quite often when I am doing some kind of a template is I like to sew directly on the line and then cut it out a 1/4 inch outside the line, rather than cutting out the stocking first and then sewing it. When you do that, sometimes your edges get really a little bit ski-wampus, and they don't work as well. All right. So, so I'll show you what I mean here in just a minute. Okay, let's take a look. So I'm starting out with 4 charms. Yes, Renee, a girlfriend's gift card would fit very nicely in here. So aren't these cute? Oh my goodness, I love. And so you start out with 4 charms, and you're going to sew it into a 4 patch. So Here's your 4 patch. This is going to be for the front. And I did 2 4 patches. This is going to be for the back. Okay, so front and back. Now, if one charm pack makes 5 stockings, you could, if you didn't want to piece the back and you just wanted a plain back and you just wanted the front, you could actually make 10 stockings. Okay, so there's that option too. All right, so you're going to make 2 4 patches. Easy enough, right? 2 together. Make a 4 patch. Also, I have directions for you all. Okay, written down. I made a pattern. So the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to cut out your lining pieces, and these are 2 lining pieces that end up being the same size as this. So it ends up being a 9.5 inch square. So 2 lining pieces, 2 4 patchworks, 2 4 patches, I should say. All right, you're going to take one of your lining pieces, put it right side together against the 4 patch, just like this, and then stitch it all the way across the top using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You're going to do the same thing on this one. You have a 4 patch, you bring the lining across, and you stitch all the way across, okay, as a 4 patch. Then open up both of those. All right, and we're going to press our seams open. So I'm going to head over here to the machine and do that. Okay. Were we able to get rid of the spammer there? Crazy stuff. Okay. Here we are. So let's see. You want to make sure the direction is where you want it to go to. All right, so I'm just lining these up and sewing across the top. Oh, I should have checked my thread. Let me do that real quick. Okay, try that again. And I'll do it one more time. Again, a lining piece on top of my 4 patch. Let's see. I want to make sure it's going the right direction. Okay, now what I'll do is I'm going to press my seams open. Isabel, that is a great question. I'm so glad you asked. She said, how do you line up the pinked edge fabric with the straight? Whenever I have pinked edge fabric, because that's how pre-cuts are done, I always line up the very tip, the very top tip, and make that as if that were the edge of my piece. So I hope that helps. Okay, and I'm going to open up this seam as well. Yep, you're going to line up those points with the straight edge. Okay, so now my seams are open. Let's head back over here to the cutting table. Grab that. And now I'm going to grab my template right here. So you just cut out the template that comes in the pattern. So again, it's this one. And I'm going to put these together, right sides together, okay? So the lining on top of the lining and the patchwork on top of the patchwork. Okay, just like that. Just line those up. And this is what I mean by actually keeping it all together as one before you cut it out and then sew it. I promise you're going to have really nice looking results when you do it that way. All right. So now at this point, what I'll do, you know what I'm going to, let's see. I think I'm going to be daring and actually use a permanent marker so you can see it a lot better. Plus, it's going to be covered in the seam anyway, so it's not a big deal. But I want you to be able to see this. So here's another important tip, and it's on your handout, is that the top of the stocking needs to rest upon the top of your open seam. Okay, so just going to draw that on. Now, if you're at home, you don't have to use a permanent marker, obviously. But here I am so you can see it a little bit better. All right, so you can see it right there. So I traced it around. Now I'm going to just flip that over just like this. So I was here, I traced around, and now all I do, flip it, see, just like that. And I'm going to line the top of my stocking against the top edge of my open seam. And I'm going to trace it once more. Okay, there we go. I'm also going to place a few pins in here all the way around just to hold it in place, so then I can take it to the machine, and I'm going to sew directly on the line. So just pin, pin, pin. There we go. That should hold it pretty well. So can everyone see how I drew the line on here? All right, so now I'm going to come back over to the machine, and I'm going to shorten my stitch length. Let me bring this over to go around. So my stitch length is at a 2.0 as by default, so I'm probably going to make it like a 1.8 or 1.6. All right, the other thing to note is that you're going to start sewing at the bottom of your lining. So maybe I'll start here just a little bit below the heel. I'll come all the way around, keep stitching, keep stitching, keep stitching, and then I'm going to stop just a few inches away from the beginning. Okay, so I want to leave a little opening there. Again, if you remember from when I first started talking about this and going through the process, I had always left an opening up here knowing that the cuff was going to fall over it. But I actually have found that this is a lot easier, and I don't even have to worry if it's not covered up enough. Now, when you go around these curves, just take it nice and slow. And again, having that shortened stitch length is going to help get a much smoother curve for you. Whoops. I think I broke. I got caught on the little end cap up here. Okay, let's try that again. There's a little bit of a pivot there. Okay, so that is that. I am all finished with sewing this. And now I'll just go ahead and take out my pins that were holding the layers together. Okay, all the pins are gone. And now let's go back. There we go. And there's a couple things I could use here. I could use just some regular scissors and cut maybe 1/8 of an inch all the way around the outside. And then you don't have to worry about you don't have to really worry about clipping corners if you're about 1/8 of an inch. Or you could take pinking shears, which I've done here, and that's like clipping your corners for you. So that's just a fun little tip if you happen to have some pinking shears on hand. Okay, so I'm just sewing, I'm just cutting about 1/8 to 1/4 inch all the way around the outside of the stocking. Another tip I like to do is when I get to the opening area, I actually like to cut out a little bit further and then back in. It just makes it so nice when it comes to folding in that opening. You know, these are such cute scraps. You could save these scraps for like small appliques and such. So if you don't like to waste fabric, I would save this excess and I would save them for some appliques. Okay, this stuff right here. Okay, so now my stocking is almost complete. Ta-da! So what I'm going to do is now go through the opening that was my lining and pull all of this right side out. Okay, so just reach in there. And it's going to start to appear. There we go. All right. And then you want to make sure and pull out those seams. You know, when we go around curves and such, sometimes what I'll do is just lick my fingers. Do you guys do that? And then just kind of push, you know, kind of rub them between your fingers and it will pull the seam out. You can also use like, you know, that they have like the R&K turning tool would be perfect for that. Any kind of little tool that will help just get in there and pull those edges out. Okay. So you can see it starting to take shape here. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay. There we go. So it looks kind of funny, but hang tight. It'll get better. Let me I'm going to grab my ironing, mat. So, because I'm going to give this a nice press right now. And when I press the lining, I will make sure that the seam allowance that I had left open will actually now go inside. Let me grab my mat here. I need to do a little bit more poking out here. Okay, pull that. There we go. There we go. Okay. Now at this point, I have that opening still. So all I have to do is I'm just, tucking that in and making sure that that's just pressed in there. And then I'll take it to the sewing machine and just top stitch that opening closed. Okay, so I'm just going to do that real quick. I know you won't be able to see it, but okay. So with that opening now closed, I can now push this back into the stocking. You're just pushing that lining right back in. And now you don't have, any raw edges or no open seams. This stocking is large enough that you really can get your most hands through it. If not, just go ahead and take like an R&K turning tool or a ruler or something that might fit in there just to push that lining down. Okay, do a little bit of shaking on it, and you're pushing it down until the tops meet up at the fold. Do you see how my lining is now meeting the top of the fold? I'm just going to play with that. It's looking good. Just trying to smooth all those edges out. Okay, I'm just about done. And now I'll give it one more press. And the final step, look how cute. The final step is just to simply fold over the top so that you have about an inch of a cuff here. And there you go. There's your stocking. How fun is that? Your music. I love the old vintage like post office, postal stamps, and then the music. You can't go wrong with that. And so, yeah, super fun. Now, if you wanted to attach like a little hanger, I could have done that. I actually chose not to because I just was going to like take some baker's twine and just run it with a needle and go through there. But if you wanted to do more of like a fabric handle of such, all you would have to do is you would just place it in the lining before you stitch it, and then you stitch over top of it, and then out it will come. So you just place it in the lining before you sew is all. Okay, so here's that stocking, and then we've got this stocking, and where did my third one go? Oh, right here. So again, out of one charm pack, you can make actually 5 stockings, or if you didn't have the patchwork on the back, you could make 10 stockings. Isn't that fun? So, you can take this idea and run with it and do all kinds of sizes. It doesn't have to be based off of 5-inch squares, but that's what I used because I was just so much fell in love with this charm pack. It's called All About Christmas. It's so cute. It's so vintagey. I just love it. So that is thing number 2. What do you think? Are you guys going to make one? Are you going to try it? They're really kind of fun. So, and then hopefully you can see the process of what I did, from beginning to end. You saw the flub ups. I call them flub ups. We always learn from flub ups, right? So I wouldn't have gotten, I mean, it would be really hard to get that kind of perfection, right? The first time you did it, if you wanted to make sure everything was just right on, if you wanted to make sure you had the flare and the toe wasn't sticking out too large and it was large enough opening that you could actually put things into it and all sorts of stuff. So it's a process when you're creating, right? So I just wanted to be able to show that part of the process a little bit. I almost threw my samples away and then I'm like, no, let's use this as a learning experience. So there you go. Um, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So that is theme number 2. Oh, Judy says a cute gift for the mailman. Oh, that would be cute. I love that. Yes, the stocking template. I'll show you that here in just a minute. Lori asks, if you want to embroider a name on the cuff, do you do that after the stocking is finished? Great question, Lori. Couple rules of thought here. You might have better luck if you were to wait, right, until the stocking was finished, because then you would know exactly where to go. But if it were me, I would actually make a stocking on a scrap piece of fabric first. Then I would do my measuring, and then I would go, okay, if that's where it needs to go, then because you're going to have to make it, this is the thing, if you're going to embroider this, you've got to do it on the lining first, and it has to be upside down. Okay, so that's really the key. It's got to be upside down, because when you flip it over, now it will be the right way. Okay, so play around with it with some scrap fabrics, or just go ahead and just go for it. But know that when you do it, it's got to be upside down. Okay, all right. Let's see, what other questions do you have? Yeah, it is definitely the easiest to embroider it before it's all put together, but I know sometimes it's easier for people to actually have it together and then they embroider it, but it would be pretty tough because it's so small. I don't know. If you had like a free arm, you could do it, but with a standard bed of a machine, it would probably be a lot harder. So, but definitely worth a try. I think that would be a lot of fun. And yeah, test pieces are always a good idea. I'm a huge tester for sure. I hate to waste my like really good fabric on something that I'm just going to completely muff up. So I'm always like, you know what? I'm just going to play around and I'm going to do it on my scraps, right? Before I do the real deal. So anyway, kind of fun. Again, a great way I could just see like, I don't know, even putting some sprigs of holly or berries or whatever in there and just having it as a decoration, or, filling it with gifts and giving it to someone, having a whole bunch of these, on your mantle or whatever it might be. Yes, Alicia, that's a really good idea. She said maybe put a name on a patch and then attach it. You could definitely do that. Or you know what I'm seeing a lot of this year is I'm seeing a lot of little tags hanging down from stockings. In fact, on our stockings at home this year, rather than me embroidering their names across the top, I have these little tags that have their initial on it. Even just an initial. You could do like a round tag with an initial and you have it hanging down, and that would be really cute too. And that would be a heck of a lot easier than trying to do it on here, right? So anyway, but have fun with it. Yeah, and Larry says you could hand embroider the name if you're so inclined. You absolutely could do that as well. You could draw the name on a tag and hang it down from there. So lots of different ways to go about putting the names on there. All right, so that is theme number 2. I hope you learned something new and got inspired to try something to sew. And we've done theme number 1 and 2, and now it's you know what time it is? Let's see.